get deep than the ocean do. Waves get deep than the ocean do.
This is the Honda Civic Type R, and it's the best front-wheel drive handling car we've ever encountered. In fact, it's one of the best high-performance cars, full stop, but Honda has treated it to a 2021 update. And we're here to find out if that's enough to keep this car in the top spot.
And this is the hot hatch that everyone is talking about. It's the Toyota GR Yaris. It's a little bit smaller than the Honda. It costs a little bit less money, but it makes the same amount of performance and it has the added benefit of all-wheel drive. So the question is, which of these two cars is best? Let's start with the Honda. This is one of my favorite hot hatches of all time. I love the way this thing drives, and they've just made it better.
Yes, they have, Alex, and it is too one of my favorite hot hatches, and actually probably one of my favorite performance cars of all. I was lucky enough to be at the launch where they told us all of the good things they've done to this car.
At Phillip Island, of all places.
No less. Lucky boy I was.
So what have they done? It's officially a midlife update, right?
Well, yes, they say an update. It's light. Let's start with the engine, which hasn't changed at all. But I think that's a good thing, because the engine is an absolute stunner. Like, it manages to produce loads of torque, 400 newton meters, but it'll also rev out to the red line at 7,000 RPM. So, like, that's quite accomplished.
We did drag race these exact cars. It's a little bit tricky to get off the line. We'll admit it lost the drag race to the Yaris, but once it's up and moving, man, this engine is really, really strong. As you will now display with a full go through first. Second. What do you reckon?
Shift lights coming in and a beep to remind me not to blow it up. That would be embarrassing.
Do you like how it sounds?
I do. Look, now, I know a lot of people have criticised it for being a little bit muted and perhaps, not having some of the character of other engines, four-cylinder turbos. I like it because at that top end, it's got a really lovely sort of race-tuned nature to it, almost like one of the old Evos or like a Cosworth engine at the limit. It sounds mechanical and honest. You know what I mean? No, you don't know what I mean.
I don't love it. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think, to me, this car, unlike previous Type Rs where the engine was the star, revving all the way out past $8,000, to me the engine is a tool for the chassis, because the chassis is what stands out for me with this car. The way that it drives is absolutely phenomenal, and they've made some changes there too, right?
They have. It's not a huge amount, but as the old expression goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Basically, it's the adaptive dampers have had a slightly different program put in them. So at the softer end in comfort, it's a little bit more comfortable, and at the plus R end of the spectrum, it's a little bit stiffer and more focused, and that's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, more bandwidth.
Absolutely good way of putting it, Alex, but you love it for other reasons as well, don't you?
I just love how focused this car is, and it always feels like it's on your side.
Totally.
And it always feels like it can cope big bumps like that coming into a sharp right-hander. It's just so unflustered, this car.
And the steering weight is beautiful, probably one of the best we've sampled. Can you agree?
Absolutely, and you always feel like you can add more steering. So if you come into a corner
I'm demonstrating.
If you come in a bit too hot, just add some more lock and it's just going to grip and go. I love that about this car. I just got the fundamentals right.
Absolutely.
Steering's great, the gear shift is fantastic, the brakes really, really strong. They've updated the brakes for this facelift too, yeah?
They have. I'm not sure I totally agree with what they've done with the brakes. So it's now a two-piece rotor. The calipers are the same, rotor's the same diameter, but they've gone to a two-piece from a single-piece cast rotor, but they've taken away the cross drills.
Oh, right,
You know what I mean? If you want a bit of street stance and status, then that shouts high performance.
It does save weight though, 2.3 kilograms of unsprung weight.
I'll give you that, but I'd like to see what the wet braking performance is like now, because that's what the cross drills do. A lot of people think that's for ventilation and cooling, which it is to an extent, but more importantly, it lets the water go somewhere in the wet. So I'd be really interested to see how that goes now.
Okay, so we'll agree this update, the tweaks they've made to the chassis, has made this car even better.
100%, absolutely. I'm never going to get bored of that. I'm
No.
sorry. It's accessible fun. There's no torque steer, by the way. Like front-wheel drives with this much power, 230 odd kilowatts.
228, yep.
All right. It doesn't struggle for grip at all. What it does is it will tramline a little. It'll find the grippy spots in the road and it'll sort of pull you towards them. But I can work with that. Just out and out torque steer is a bit frustrating. There's nothing you can do with it. But this just finds perfect grip.
I like the way the power comes in as you're driving out of corners as well. That diff really does, you can feel it working its magic, which is great. But it's not just the mechanical stuff they've changed. They have made some tweaks to the inside of the car. I can see that that's an Alcantara steering wheel that you are holding.
It is. Very nice it is too. Comfortable, but I don't know how I feel about that. Especially with these red inserts. Does it not feel a bit try-hard? It's like, that's the equivalent of turning up to a track day wearing gloves and boots, is it not?
With a big Ferrari logo on them.
Yeah, totally, or a Simpson Bandit. Yeah, exactly.
A little bit, and I wonder how that material is going to feel in 10 years' time, and it's got 500 people's worth of DNA.
Gross.
squeezed
This is a
into
press
it.
car, so it's probably got enough DNA that I find undesirable already. There's also the same material on the gear gator. We've got Alcantara there, and let's talk about our knob.
Yes, so they've changed the shape of the shifter. In the last car, it was a ball, a hard metal ball, and I loved that. I think it was really, really cool, and they had a little light up here that shone a red beam down onto it at night, which I loved. But now they've changed the shape.
What shape? What would you liken that to, Alex?
I said this in the drag race video. It is the shape of my thumb.
I don't know whether I find that.
I mentioned that and I can't see past that now. It's a thumb.
Don't know whether I find that unsettling or not, but it is a very good description. Some people would say teardrop, but we're going to go with thumb. I like it. It's actually a return to more consistent times for Type R because the spherical knob was actually a break from tradition. It's always been that shape, and then they went to the sphere. I was a big fan of it, but anyway, we can't stand in the way of progress.
This is true. But seats going around the corner now, heaps of lateral support. I love these seats.
So do I, and they also look the part too. They really add to this cabin. I'm a big fan, actually. I think it creates all the right sort of magic and sensation.
Absolutely. And they haven't, forgotten that this is a car people are going to use. It's still really practical. Heaps of space in the cabin, really comfy seats, lots of little storage cubbies.
Well, how does it feel in the back seat?
I'm very comfortable. I've got heaps of knee room, lots of toe room. Could do with a bit more under thigh support. And there are no rear air vents or USB ports or even a center armrest with cup holders. But there is just heaps and heaps of space. If you're going to buy a hot hatch and actually use the back seat for people on a regular basis, I reckon this is the one to buy.
Who would have thought we'd be saying one of the sharpest hot hatches money can buy is actually practical as well?
I know, and grab handles. So if you want to take 4 of your mates for a fang like we are now, you can do that. Alternatively, I'd happily sit back here in the trip from Melbourne to Sydney, no worries.
I won't subject you to that.
Well, I could easily do it. Oh, yes.
So we're in Plus R at the moment, Alex, but is that perhaps a little bit too urgent for you? Would you like a little more comfort in your life?
No, actually. If I was driving to the shops, I would, but we're driving quickly now, and I think the way this car rides, even in its stiffest setting, is perfectly fine for me.
Yeah, agreed, actually. I could live all day long in sport mode, which is the one in the middle. But in comfort, look, it does make a remarkable difference. I don't need that. I think if you buy a car like this, you're expecting it to be, is it fair to say, compromised in the right quality? It's livable either way, we'd agree on that, I think.
Yeah, I think, the chassis tune on this car feels like they've put a lot of care into it. And they've not just focused on dynamics, but also actually living with the thing, and I really enjoy that. I appreciate that engineers have thought about, and that's what a hot hatch should be, right?
Absolutely right.
It needs to be all things to all men.
Now, I know you might not believe it, Alex, but there has been a small styling update with the 2021 version as well.
You're right, I don't believe it.
Honestly, neither do I.
What have they changed?
Allow me to point it out. You might have missed it. It's those funny little fake grills at the front and rear. They've now been highlighted with this little accent that's body coloured in them as well.
Oh, those blades of blue on this
Blades
car.
is way sexier way of describing them. That's pretty much it on the exterior, apart from obviously this very lovely blue colour.
I love this blue. What's it called? It's like, is it a Porsche like a Mexico blue or a Riviera blue or something like that?
You're going to be disappointed. It's racing blue.
Racing blue.
Yes.
Oh, come on, marketing department. They could have done way better than that.
Well, America has. They call it Boost Blue.
Oh, Boost
Isn't
Blue
it
is
so
awesome.
So much better. I don't know how I feel about it. It's a lovely colour in isolation, but it's like, does it work with the styling of the Honda Civic Type R? Like, I'd paint my front door this colour, but I wouldn't stick Shelby stripes in the middle. It's like that. Does it make it better or worse?
A lot of people say this car looks best in black because it sort of disguises the wings and flicks and spoilers, but I would have it in this colour. I think
Would
if you're
you?
going to go all in with an outrageous car, go all the way in and paint it the most stupid colour you can.
I think it's too much. It's over the top. I'd have the black one, and I'd probably bin the spoiler at the same time. It works for you?
I'm not as offended by the way this car looks as a lot of people seem to be. You know, people say that that's actually what would stop them buying this car because they think it's too outrageous, it's too horrible midlife crisis or, you know, young teenager. So, but I'm not offended by it because of the way that it drives.
Yeah, it does. It keeps all the promises that styling makes. It says I'm going to be a rocket ship and I'm going to be in your face and ostentatious. And you're right, it's matched entirely by its performance.
That is a big bump. This car handles it so well though, doesn't it?
That was a great demonstration of how good the handling and ride is. That's brilliant. And the exit of that corner as well. It's not shaking the front wheels loose. It's just very composed.
Nothing phases it. It's like a GT Porsche in that way.
Right, that's a big call.
It is a big call, but there is, you know, they're very different machines, but there is an element of GT division in this car, I think, in the way that it drives.
The other good thing about driving this car is you don't have to look at its styling.
Come on, it's not that bad.
All right. It is a sensationally good car all round. It does put a very, very high benchmark to match.
Exactly. It was the benchmark handling hot hatch coming into this, and now they've just moved the benchmark even further.
Hard act to follow.
Oh, that Yaris has got to be really good. Ready?
It was born ready. That's ridiculous.
5.2 seconds to 100. There you go.
Alex, this is the Toyota GR Yaris. And this is the one that has something to prove, isn't it?
It does, but it's the one everybody is talking about. I can't remember a hot hatch that's had more hype than this, can you?
Not at all. Perhaps the Civic Type R, but no, you're right. This comes to a really, really empty stage, but it's got apparently the credentials. On paper alone, it looks very, very good, doesn't it?
Stage is an appropriate word, given this is a WRC homologation special, all-wheel drive. It's got a lot of motorsport bits in it, and this engine, let's start with the engine because I absolutely love it.
Absolutely, me too. It's a 3-cylinder, but you know, 3 cylinders have never really lit my fire that much. This one is an exception though. It's 200 kilowatts, which is amazing for 1.6.
And it loves to rev.
How is it doing that?
Makes power all the way up to 7.2.
All right. That engine is an absolute sensation. Okay, 3 cylinders. Normally you think, is that enough? Obviously it's a very light car. 200 kilowatts. I mean, on paper at least, it looks very good, but in practice, it goes incredibly well as well.
It feels faster than it sounds on paper, that's for sure.
Speaking of the way it sounds,
I reckon it's great.
it's got to be the best sounding 3-cylinder we've heard yet. I do have one problem with the engine, and that is that 3 cylinders, because you've only got a certain number of power strokes every revolution, they're quite difficult to get going, and that means they always get a big flywheel. And for me, it feels like it's got a bit too much momentum in the engine. It's hard to slow it down for another gear. I don't know, all 3 cylinders do it, and this is no exception, unfortunately.
That's an interesting point. I haven't really thought of, because when you drive it like this, you know, you get a little bit of rev hang, but it's not that bad. The bigger issue that I have with this car is the way that it goes around corners, unfortunately.
Right, okay, well look, we've already said this, the Civic absolutely excels in its chassis. This has to be able to do it every bit as well, otherwise it's dead in the water. You're not liking it?
Oh, well, there's that big bump we hit in the Civic.
That's a great acid test.
Both cars handle that bump really well. The way that these cars ride for performance cars is spot on, I reckon. It's a good judge of firmness with compliance. What do you think?
Yeah, excellent, but really what we're focusing on is what they do at the limit. And the Civic is so good, it's almost hard to find the limit, but when you do, it's really friendly and civilized. This, though, at the limit is not, it doesn't excel, does it?
the limit's way earlier because you can hear the tyres squealing as I'm tipping it into corners. I tried to carry the same amount of speed into a turn just then that I did in the Civic Type R earlier, and all I got was an armful of understeer, unfortunately, and we all know how much fun understeer is.
But apparently, Toyota put a lot of time into engineering the divide, the split of torque between the front and rear axles. In sport mode, apparently you can send up to 70% to the rear axle. It just doesn't feel like that to me.
It doesn't actually. The torque split is quite clever because in normal mode it's 60% at the front, 40% at the back. In sport mode, which the car defaults to, it's 30% at the front, 70% at the back, and then at track it's a 50-50 split. But when you're driving it on the public road like this, in sport mode at least, it doesn't feel very rear biased to me.
It is a little underwhelming. I've actually been lucky enough to spend some time in this car on track for Performance Car of the Year, and that's where it really showed it up even more than on the road. Disappointing. However, we think we have a solution, don't we? Because the problem lies in most likely the tyres.
Yes, these are Dunlops, and we should point out they have been through Wheels Car of the Year testing and Motor Performance Car of the Year, so they're probably past their best.
And now us.
Yes.
So yeah, probably not at their best at all. And of course, this doesn't have a mechanical limited slip differential.
It doesn't. So I reckon the Rally is the one to get. Put a limited slip diff front and rear. I reckon that would transform the car.
And that car is coming, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. It's going to be a little bit expensive though, unfortunately. 60 grand. Is that too much for a Yaris?
Of course it is. This one's 50 and that's already too much.
I know. But look, it sounds like we're being a bit negative about this car, but that's not the case. I love that it exists. I love the engine. I love the way that it looks. I know that you're a little bit on that, but we'll come back to it. And kudos Toyota for actually building it, because the world is a richer place that we have this car.
Absolutely right.
We should, for a moment, talk about just how much Toyota has changed on this car compared to the Yaris that your mum drives.
Exactly.
It's massive.
There's very little left, isn't there? That's why it came off its own bespoke production line. It's completely different.
Even the platform's different. The front half is Yaris, but the rear half of the platform is actually taken from the Corolla because it's got an independent rear suspension at the back, not a torsion beam.
So it's like a cut and shut. Great.
It's a light little thing though, 1280 kilograms. I like that, and they've obviously put a lot of effort into saving weight. We've got aluminium in the bonnet. These doors are frameless, which is really cool. I love
a frameless door.
And also the tailgate is aluminium, and the roof is a special carbon fibre blend.
Yeah, but they've stuck a sticker over the top, so it just looks like Cheapy from Super Cheap Auto. It's weird. Why would you do that?
I know, I'd be ripping that off, but I might be a bit afraid to find out what's underneath.
It's like getting a waxing strip off and terrified of the irritation underneath. God.
But like I said, all-wheel drive, no other Yaris is like that. And track widths have changed, all the suspension is unique, so they have gone all in on making this a proper little ball terror.
Look, the results are really, really good. On roads like this, if you weren't driving it at 10/10, which someone I know was,
No.
you can have a lot of fun in it. It is a tremendous little thing. The fact that we're putting it up against the Civic Type R means it's already achieved a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a high benchmark to try to climb over. And I think, to a degree, the roads you drive this car on are going to determine how much enjoyment you get out of it. Because when we had it at Wheels Car of the Year, the roads were more open, great sight lines, second, third gear turns, and it really excelled. But here, where you're leaning on the front end, and all you're getting is armfuls of understeer, unfortunately, it's just not as fun as I was hoping it was going to be.
And it doesn't matter if you back off mid-corner, it doesn't roll around into, you know what I mean? It's just, there's nothing you can do about it.
Unlike the Civic, which just grips and goes, and you can throw more and more speed at it, this car's all about managing it on the way into corners, and you almost have to drive it like a front-wheel drive car. You have to give it a lift, try and square off the corner, and then get on the power, which kind of negates the reason of having it all-wheel drive in the first place, right?
Exactly right. Wouldn't you just go straight to the kill and just do rear-wheel drive?
Oh, this engine, I love this engine.
Oh, it's a pearl. One key difference we haven't touched on yet is this is a compact hatchback. The Civic is a small hatchback, but this is much smaller.
Absolutely, much smaller footprint, so how's the back seat going?
You're going to put me in the back, aren't you? Oh,
I am,
God.
I'm sorry.
All right, let's
get back there.
Alex, it's horrid back here.
Quiet in the back, please. I'm driving.
No, put anyone back here and they're going to complain from start to finish. It's horrid.
It is absolutely horrid.
Like,
but
there's no support at all. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't expect someone to be driving enthusiastically, but literally non-existent headroom, non-existent legroom, to the point where I've had to put one out. It's horrible.
What about cup holders, USB ports?
No, are you kidding me? There's nothing. There's no creature comforts whatsoever. Just lots and lots of claustrophobia.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if you buy this car, you're not going to fit fully grown adults back there.
No way.
But you can fit 4 spare tyres. There you go.
Okay, right. I'm not even asked how you know that. Can I come back now?
Okay.
Like, I used to say that the BMW 1.5 litre 3-cylinder in the i8 was my absolute favourite. This could be my new one.
Yeah, right. Interesting.
Enough chat, Alex. It's time to get down to the business of judgment and putting some scores on the doors.
Each car is given a rating out of 5 points in 5 key areas: power, practicality, handling, value, and the more subjective but still crucial, fun. Practicality?
Oh, well, that's
disparity there.
an easy one. Are you a generous marker or...?
Our scores are then averaged out for a final combined rating out of 25.
Well, I'm generous if it deserves it. You've got to try to remove your, whether you like the car or not, and just be...
Yeah. Has anyone got any white out? I'm done.
Same.
Both cars are huge fun on the road, but the Yaris didn't quite deliver the tail-happy sensation that its hype campaign suggested. The Civic's incredibly playful nature, however, scored maximum points.
A disappointing tendency to understeer cost the Toyota points, but the completely predictable and responsive handling in the Honda earned it another perfect 5.
Neither car is exactly sluggish, with plenty of power on tap for both. But the Yaris's mighty 200 kilowatts from just 1.6 litres, and the soundtrack to match, won it the power prize.
While the Yaris sacrifices a lot of practicality in the pursuit of outright performance, the Civic retains most of the features that you find in the entry-level variant, and it's the clear winner here.
Both cars are pricey when compared with their more pedestrian counterparts, but offer huge performance potential in exchange for a price tag around the 50 grand mark. Ultimately though, it's the Civic that offers more for your money. Well, Alex, the numbers, they don't lie, do they?
No, mate, they don't. A clear victory for the Honda, and a much bigger victory than I was expecting on paper, and the complete opposite to what we had when we had these cars at the drag strip, where the Toyota won pretty much everything.
At the end of the day, you would have been walking away with that car at one hands down, but it's a very different story today, isn't it?
It is, on the road, and these are road cars where they're going to be driven. For me, the Civic is a much better performance car. It's a better car, full stop, with a bigger boot. It's more practical. So for me, that's the winner.
I hate to agree with you every time, Alex, but you're absolutely right on this occasion. This is a fantastic car. It wouldn't be here if it wasn't an awesome vehicle, but you know what? We haven't tested the right one.
We need the rally!
Exactly, we want the differential.
And the stickier tyres. That's going to transform the car, I think. So when that happens, rally rematch. And you don't want to miss that one, so make sure you hit subscribe to the Motor YouTube channel.
Is it literally just that one? Or is that going to
Yeah.
f*** your...
No, I think it's just that one. And then you got to slide the front of it.
That's fucking ridiculous.
It is.
Oh, God. I don't like it already.
Oh, you look like a goblin back there.
Yeah, thanks.
I am actually... Right.